Good morning, and welcome to the always exciting Corporation of Township Minden Hills regular council meeting for Thursday, June 26th. In reviewing today's agenda, we have a special presentation of a very deserving award, the Township of Minden Hills Ontario Senior of the Year, and we'll keep that a surprise for a few moments. There's a closed meeting session that is scheduled for 10:30 a.m. We will proceed with the agenda until it is time to move into that closed. Following the closed, the open agenda will continue. Madam Deputy Clerk, please proceed with a roll call to confirm council attendance.
Councillor Sisson,
Present.
Councillor Saini,
Present.
Councillor McKelvey,
Present.
Councillor Johannesson,
Present.
Councillor Ingram,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Shell,
Present.
Mayor Carter.
Present. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Minden Hills is located on Treaty 20 Michisagi territory and in the traditional territory of the Michisagi and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which are Curve Lake, Rama, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. We acknowledge the shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original Indigenous inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. I called this meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. Madam Deputy Clerk, please proceed with reading the resolution for the approval of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Johannesson, seconded by Councillor Saini. Be it resolved that the June 26, 2025 regular council meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
All those in favor? That is carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we move to delegations. And so today we are very pleased to present the Ontario Senior of the Year to a very deserving member of our community, Jack Brzezina. Jack, please join us as we recognize your outstanding contributions to the township. You. Just to move these. Okay. Should have got a red flower, then it wouldn't be noticeable. Up here. Jack, on behalf of council and all the people of Minden Hills, thank you for all you do, and please accept this award on our behalf. So that's lovely. Now we want to get all the council up here. Sure. So we can have a picture. I'll let you. Okay. It's yours now. It's my diploma.
Congratulations. Well, deserved.
Sure. What happened? What happened?
One more photo with Pat in it.
Oh.
Yeah, come on. Yes. Come on. We know it all takes teamwork.
You know what they're gonna say, it's a big, long line. Why don't we step forward and somebody can come in behind.
Yeah.
I'm doing a photography
Well,
thing.
mine
I'm
was behind
sorry.
it, always. How about we just stand like this?
No flash voting anymore.
Can I
Well,
have a minute?
absolutely.
I don't want to take over the meeting.
No, no,
I
please,
think we've got a full
feel
agenda.
feel free.
So I'd like to, first of all, thank the municipality and everyone for this honor.
Yeah.
Okay. Am I close enough? I'd like to thank the municipality and everyone who was behind getting this handed to me. I have one reservation, and that it says Seniors Award, and I'm not ready to be, well, maybe I am. Maybe it's time. Anyway, it made me think, we came here in June of 1989, 46, 79. Yes, exactly. 46 years ago, which is amazing. And of course, we came because of the newspaper, and it looked after us, and I raised my family with the newspaper and with Pat's help as well, of course. And we decided this is a great place to stay, and we're still here. And we've been married for 50 years, and I couldn't have, 52. And I couldn't have done it without, first of all, my family, and particularly Pat behind me and all the things. As you can hear, she was my proofreader. So whenever there was some error before it got printed, she would be there straightening things out. Well, you were, right? Anyway, so we had a lot of fun. It's been great. It's been a really interesting experience. And there are lots of other people who are, whenever I was doing something, there were lots of other people who are now seniors, or other people who are just in the community, standing behind me, standing beside me, leading me on. And I appreciate all their efforts and everything that goes into making a good community great. Thank you very much.
You should note that the minister award is 88, so you're just a young.
Oh, we've got to get this home and planted. Well,
Thank you. Okay, so the closed session is going to be moved to 10:30, correct? And we're just gonna churn on with the agenda until that time. There is a Triple HS AGM meeting that Lisa and I have been asked to attend at 1:30, so we're hopefully going to be able to get through everything in order to do that. All right, so moving back to open session here. I guess we don't have a report from closed session yet. All right, so we go to the adoption of the minutes. For adoption of the minutes for the June 12th meeting, were there any comments or amendments from council? Seeing none, please read the resolution.
Moved by Councillor Sisson, seconded by Councillor McKelvey. Be it resolved that council approves the June 2025 regular council meeting minutes.
All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to payment of accounts. Are there any comments or questions from council on the payment of accounts? Seeing none, please read the resolution.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Shell, seconded by Councillor McKelvey. Be it resolved that the accounts in the amount of $3,030,630.85 be approved for payment.
All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to the mayor's report. One of the bit of good news is that we had received correspondence From the Honorable Todd McCarthy, the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, regarding the late partner program that we discussed at, I'm not sure which of the previous meetings, when we wrote a letter in support of FOCA. And the ministry has advised us that they have entered into a new agreement with FOCA to continue to coordinate the lake partner program and to finance it. So that was, I think we had perhaps requested a delegation at AMO, but that won't be necessary because it was done. Just another note, I think this week, so far this week, I've received 3 letters from ministers on various and sundry programs, including one from the Minister of Energy asking us to support his energy program. I'm not exactly certain how, but right now it appears that the government is making lots of announcements prior to AMO. And so you can expect that there will be many more, and they will be attached to the agenda as they come in. Before I go further on the mayor's report, just a public service announcement from the Rotary Club. We'll get from Councillor Johannesson.
Thank you. This is an invitation to 2025 Minden Rotary Fest, which is Saturday, August 9th. The 2025 Minden Rotary Fest will be held on Saturday, August 9th from 10 to 4 p.m. And Minden Rotary would like to warmly invite all members of council and staff to attend this fun-filled community event. We're also looking for enthusiastic participants to take a turn in the water dunk tank. It's always a crowd favorite. If you're interested, please let us know. We'd love to promote your participation in advance. Last year, the Minden Fire Department were fantastic sports and brought great energy to the event. This year, we're hoping to match that excitement with support from other departments as well. We're giving plenty of notice so you can plan ahead, and we kindly ask that directors and the management team share this invitation with your teams. We hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Can we nominate somebody for the dunk tank, Mr. Mayor?
I think if you wish to do that, you can bring it up for the next meeting. Moving on, I had discussed or brought up last time this idea of trying to get a working group together to, for the lack of a better description, we've come up with the Minden Village Vitality Working Group. And I think we have handouts. So when we did the community engagement program and have been talking to residents and businesses, stressed a recurring theme and a priority to create a long-term vision plan for village improvements. The area has unique retail offerings, restaurants, social gathering space, and recurring events. And while we await, going through our strategic plan and which was longer term and more in-depth work, I think there's an immediate need to focus attention on strengthening our downtown. So I'd like to strike a working group to explore opportunities to enliven our village core. There's some things that we can do immediately or in the short term that'll make a difference to the atmosphere, and working together, we can make some improvements. So I would certainly be part of, chairing that group, and would invite both of our Ward 1 councillors to join me in striking the group, invite representatives from business, service clubs, residents, and try to, bring forth their input as to, what can we do to improve the vitality of the downtown. So the CAO is going to be helping us, and and sort of as our main contact support for the working group. But I would like to move that forward and see if we can get something done in the shorter term to improve the vitality of downtown. Councillor Yancey?
I just have a few thoughts and comments regarding this community improvement task force for consideration. I've spoken to some of our community members over the last few weeks regarding this. You've pointed out a few things already, but at least one council member or more, if desired, should be part of this team. In this capacity, the council member shall only act as a source of information for the committee and as an intermediate communicator between the committee and council. The council member would not be a voting member. When the committee is formed, I suggest that its primary focus should not be around businesses. I believe we need to first focus on creating vibrancy, life, and beauty in the town, such as activities or spaces for families to enjoy. If this is achieved, I believe the businesses aspect will organically flourish. We need to get people to choose to stay in Minden. We need to make Minden a desirable daytime destination. The rest will follow. I also think that it is important to engage with the community to understand needs and wants and gather feedback, as well as I think the meetings should be in the evening and communities should bring together people with diverse skills and perspectives. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. I think the only thing is it would not be a committee. Okay, and so in terms of the voting is really, nobody's going to be voting. This is an idea to try to, get some ideas and hopefully, reach some sort of consensus of good ideas that can come to us. And, whether it was the idea of moving where the crosswalk was or, improving the lighting or whatever these things might be. We just need to get them here so that we can get moving on them quicker than having to wait for a full formal plan or anything like that. Councillor Shaney.
Yes, I want to say thank you for bringing this forward. It's been a long time need. And it's good to see that we have some now formal communication through this task force to get things rolling. We know a lot of what needs to be done. We need to formalize it and get it going. And this is a great way to do it. So I'm really excited to see this happening. So thank you for bringing this forward.
It's good thing. Anything else? All right. All right. Okay. Moving on, Roma board, Councillor Shaney.
Well, I missed the last meeting because of meetings with Roma, et cetera. And you know that some of my reports have been fairly short, if any, at times. So I'm afraid today's making up for the lost time. Are you ready? It's going to be a bit of a lengthy report because it's been a very, very busy time. So first of all, as you know, that Roma's June board meeting was held in Mississippi Mills. It was over a 3-day period. The board met also with tourism with local businesses regarding the on-the-ground impacts of the global economic turmoil that we're facing right now. We heard a lot about things from Lanark County as well about the highly collaborative process to create a community safety and well-being plan. I have to add that Robert Wong, our cultural program director, encouraged me, being in Mississippi Mills, to go see the Mississippi Valley Textile Museum, which was a great link to Minden. I got to meet Michael Reichel Lancaster, who's the executive director, who gave us a personal tour, myself and another colleague, of the area and of their community development there. He sits on several committees as well as directs the textile museum and is also the Museum Association Executive Council of Ontario. So I put him in touch with, and I'm hoping at some point he'll come to meet Robert and we begin to have that kind of interaction between our young professional here and Michael and some of the work that he's done. So that was kind of exciting to be able to make those kind of links when you do this sort of traveling. And as we're looking at interprovincial trade and trade within, one of the other places we visit was called Vodka. And vodka is a product that was created because there was some waste from cows and it was very expensive to get rid of that waste. So some ingenious local found a way, a farmer, to change that waste into vodka. So they have 12 different flavors, I might add. But this new product, vodka, now made in Ontario, is something that we could promote here. And what I've tried to do is we have a local brewery here in Minden as well. So I'm hoping to get an exchange there of some provincial trade within the area with these products. So kind of promoting that within as we go off to these places and see what kind of links can I create here with our businesses in Minden. So those were some of the initiatives. As well, the board held its first meeting with the Minister of Rural Affairs, Lisa Thompson. This was since the last provincial election. It was a productive conversation as Roma emphasized its desire to work collectively with the minister and to promote long-term economic resilience, common language we use every year, it seems, but we also sought the minister's leadership in addressing rural municipal fiscal sustainability. And in particular, the board emphasized rural municipalities' capacity to commit to support the provincial and federal government in the economic development of resilience strategies. It also raised the impacts of trade disruption and tariffs locally, including the cost escalations of our infrastructure projects, which we have to visit every year, if not every meeting here. The board highlighted the ongoing need for the social economic prosperity review to fix the broken provincial municipal fiscal framework and the rising costs of OPP on top of municipal spending in areas of provincial responsibility such as health, homelessness, and social services, and reducing municipalities' ability to fund core municipality services and infrastructure. So these are the things that we're continuing to push at the Roma level with the ministers is we just need a new social and economic prosperity review. The 100-year-old way of funding municipalities isn't working with all of the particular downloads that we're experiencing. Minister Thompson also thanked Roma for its work and the board and its ability to bring real perspectives to the provincial table. She expressed broad support for further discussions on how the province and municipalities could work together on the province municipal fiscal review. So there's some dialogue there, and including with Minister Flack. And Minister also asked for the board's participation in her rural summits later this year. So she is a very, very active minister. Really amazed when you listen to her, talk to her. She's always enthused about her job and helping move things forward, and is our good liaison with all the other ministers. As we know, we cross paths with various departments. The minister committed to ongoing communications with the board and rural municipalities, including quarterly newsletter highlights, funding opportunities for local governments and small business. The busy provincial legislative agenda this spring, the province introduced about a half dozen bills, significant impact on our municipal government. So AMO and Roma continue to work and monitor and provide submissions on legislation that range from expedient planning approvals and planning and act and the municipal act, exemptions to changes to the development charge regime, the code of conduct, and homelessness encasement enforcement. So these are ongoing issues. We think about the homeless encampments enforcement. We often think of urban areas, but we are seeing that growing in rural areas exponentially. The OPP billing review with the Minister of Solicitor General recently announced a review of the OPP cost recovery model. The review should be completed before the next 2026 annual budget cycle. And AMO is working closely with SOJLN, which is the Ministry of Solicitors General, on this review, and will emphasize the broader need to reform provincial municipal fiscal relationships in that discussion around OPP funding. Broadband is, it does not appear that the province will meet the 2025 target. AMO and Roma will continue to communicate with the province and municipalities share its priorities to roll the high-speed internet to all Ontarios quickly and are doing all they can to make that fast, responsible installation happen in their communities, working with the ISPs. Tariffs are ongoing. AMO recently provided materials and supportive resources for our municipalities to help with understanding the impact of trade disruptions and tariffs, including local communities on their infrastructure projects. So funding and doing our budget this year is going to be more challenging with these unpredictable tariffs. So they created resources for infrastructure, tariff, and trade, including modeling tools for our municipalities, which I'm sure our treasurer will be very informed of. And there's also webinars to learn how to use this tool so we can be more accurate in our budgeting in the future. Developing a rural infrastructure advocacy strategy is very important. So rural Ontario's population has grown significantly in 2021, putting further strain on our municipal infrastructure. Funding for the infrastructure is inadequate. It's often one-time, involving lengthy and competitive application process, often dependent on achieving new housing starts. And so Roma is working on with AMO policy team to develop a new rural infrastructure advocacy strategy to build a case for a better municipal provincial funding arrangement across the province. So stay tuned for that. And as it seems, I keep mentioning this new review that we need to have to continue to support what we need to support as municipalities. Another thing that is fairly new, because we're familiar with the RED grant program that we often use to subsidize some of the work that we need to get done. That is no longer happening, but it's been replaced by the Rural Ontario Development Program. And it's getting funds into creating stronger businesses, boost economic growth, project jobs, improve infrastructure in small communities. So under the leadership of the Minister Thompson, I believe that this is going to be very successful, but it's, I won't read all the details of it because it is online, but I should at least say that the organizations that can apply for this include not just our municipality, but also a not-for-profit organization, an Indigenous community organization, a local service board, a small business with 1 to 20 employees. And the information on this is all online and how to apply. So anyone in our community is eligible for this. This is something that could be taken to the task force that's just been created in terms of our small business initiatives. So there's some really exciting options happening and opportunities there. I might also add that there are going to be online information on Zoom to help people to fill out the applications and walk people through the process. And we should hear back within 3 months. And this is scheduled all the way through from now to 2027. So this is something to keep in mind. And if you're not in the first round, try to get into the second round of this kind of funding. So we want to make sure that everybody knows about that in our community. So the other is the Ontario budget and what it means for municipalities. So there's going to be some changes with Impact. If you've been to some of the conferences, you might have seen some of their lunch and learns and incredible amount of change that Impact is undertaking. And so this is going to include optional tax reductions starting at 2026. Municipalities will have the option to reduce property taxes by up to 35% for eligible affordable rental units. Digital assessment notices, changes to legislation will allow Impact to issue electronic assessment notices beginning in 2026, for better or worse, but we are getting into that new world of technology. The broader use of assessment data proposed upon updates will enable wider use of Impact data for research and operations. Centralized online access working underway to provide online access to assessment roll data, reducing the need for in-person visits. So it's actually going to be, if you were building a new building on site, it's, and you didn't report it to our building department here, there are going to be actually pictures taken of our properties that show what buildings are there and which ones aren't. So if something is built and you're not paying taxes on that, impact is going to be able to see that when they do their assessments. And I'm sure it'll be in communications with our building departments. So that is something very new and brought about with the new technology. Ongoing systems review. So the provincial review of the assessment and taxation system continues, and we'll have more updates to come. But you can see this delay with getting impact is they're making incredible changes in terms of how things are done and ways that they're doing there with our stakeholders. So reflecting on the work of the AMO and Roma and in leading the healthy democracy and the proposed strengthening of municipal codes of conduct by the province and also related to respectful conduct and the Strong Mayors Act, many municipalities are reviewing the policies and practices of their council members. Our council is about to enter into another year, and we need to assess, in my opinion, what's going on in respect to our duties and responsibilities as elected officials. Our world is changing much faster, as we know that people who've been on councils in the past and are now in these councils, the things that they're changing are tremendously fast in this new world of AI and electronics. So we received training at the beginning of our orientation. And I think there's now an opportunity to review our training as a council, to review council staff relations, better understanding of our roles, and consider the rules and respectful engagement and discourse before the end of our term. So I am requesting a refresher training session with our integrity commissioner, during which council can hear from our ethics experts with respect to proper roles and responsibility of council members and staff interactions, or other questions council may have regarding our roles and responsibilities. And I've come to this with many discussions from people, not just locally, but also across the province, and seeing this kind of brave new world that we are looking at as councillors and trying to get our footing and see where we stand. This is important as we set precedents for new council as well, and for the public, affirming our poor practices are put to rest if we have any, and as an opportunity to clarify our roles. It may or may not be in camera session, or there are some advantages of not having it in camera because it's something of a public education too. But I would hope in the future we continue providing these types of workshops. You'll see also recently an article regarding the integrity commissioners' warnings. Local councils don't cross the line between oversight and interference. And there was a long article about this. And so this is kind of a integrity commissioners warning municipalities about crossing that line. And so we need to know, with all this changing regulation, where is that line and how have things changed or not changed? And therefore, that's why I put forward this motion. The council directs staff to arrange a refresher training session with the township's integrity commissioner with focus on council staff relations, local clarity, and rules of respectful engagement. So thank you for that, your indulgence in my fairly lengthy report, making up for the times when I didn't have anything to report. Thank you.
We have a motion on the table. Would need a seconder for that motion. We have a seconder. Seeing none. I wouldn't note in something that you said earlier, just for sort of to build on some of the actions of Roma and AMO regarding the OHIP, not OHIP, OPP billing. The Police Detachment Board had a presentation from the OPP on how they do their billing. That was very much a technical discussion because, they're given the rules by the government and this is how they do the calculation. But they did inform us of the work that is being done by the Solicitor General and getting the input, and they've given us the contact. So we as a Police Detachment Board will be making making known our thoughts because we have this was a battle that was fought, whatever it was, 7 or 10 years ago. We are in a situation where the base billing for the OPP is based on the number of residences. We have more residences than we have people in Minden because of the cottagers. And so we end up getting, paying for a huge chunk of money based on that, that base billing. The second part of their billing is based on activity. So the number of calls and so on, they track it all and then they bill us for that. You can see that our percentage of the base is much higher than our base of our percentage of the activity. In other words, we have thousands of homes that are empty for most of the year. So they're not getting calls. And so we and other areas, rural areas, that have a lot of cottages in particular and have a lot of population change in the summer as compared to the winter are paying, I think, an unfair amount to the OPP. And as I said, I think they are our largest single vendor at almost $2 million a year for Minden Hills. So if those rules can change, that would be beneficial. But the Police Detachment Board is actively working on that one. And some of the other things that you mentioned with the ROD program and so on, a lot of that is laid out from the minister in the letter that arrived this week and will be attached to the correspondence at the next meeting. So we have a lot of that. Councillor Saini?
Yes. Yes, thank you. Yeah, the announcement was just made, I think, on Tuesday regarding ROD. So that's very exciting news for everybody in the community that might have a proposal to put forward. And I will add that I'm sorry that this council does not support the motion to work with the Integrity Commissioner, because this is a chance to get us all on the same page and working together. There have been some local issues that have come up regarding behaviors and relationships that I think if we were all on the same page, it would be a very good way to do that instead of separate sort of reports to the Integrity Commissioner that can be more divisive, instead of having open discussions about our behaviors and how we conduct ourselves with particularly, staff relations, as well as with our community and how we represent our community broader. So I'm just, I'm very disappointed that there isn't support for that motion. Don't understand why. It seems like it would be something that we'd all as a team and representing Minden Hills would want to support and work together to build our reputation and our professionalism. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. We move on. Oh, Councillor McKelvey.
The other thing Councillor Saini mentioned was the changes coming from MPAC.
Yep.
That would be a good thing to just put on our agenda as correspondence. I mean, we received something from them, and
Actually, I don't think that we have received anything as of yet.
I received something yesterday, I think, or the day before, but it outlines quite a MPAC news, yes, Wednesday. It outlines a lot of the new. So if we could just put that on,
Okay,
and the
yeah.
whole public knows what's happening with it.
If we've got that, we will put it on
Yeah,
the next
I can
agenda.
send it if you didn't get it.
Yeah, and through you, Mr. Mayor, just a comment, it is difficult right now to keep up with all the correspondence coming from the province. So the ROD program
we are meeting on Monday just to understand the program a little bit better. Counselor McKelvey, your comments around MPAC are well taken. We need to internally review. And I think I've started a file folder of correspondence that will be on the next council agenda. But I'm sure we'll have many more between now and our next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, correspondence and communication. There was no request to pull forward anything. Madam Deputy Clerk, could you please read the resolution?
Moved by Councillor McKelvey, seconded by Deputy Mayor Shell, that council receives the June 26, 2025 correspondence and communication items 13.1 to 13.4 as information.
All those in favor? That is carried. I just want to note the one from the Township of Georgian Bay. A few years ago, I met with a group of mayors. There were about 6 or 7 of us from a number of different municipalities in Muskoka and in Georgian Bay and so on to start talking about this. This is obviously a big deal and is something that, you know, probably needs to be dealt with at the FOCA level. Because even though the province, as I remember, even though the province put in some fairly strong legislation on this, it was superseded by people who were going out and taking their basically their floating house and getting it listed as a vessel through Transport Canada. And then that meant that they could tie up at a dock or something like that. So, you know, this is something that has to be a joint federal, provincial and municipal thing, because in some lakes, I think in Muskoka, where, you know, pretty high rent district, people were taking barges with sea cans on them and just tying them up on the lake and you know, making a very cheap cottage that didn't have to pay taxes or anything like that. So that there's probably more to come on that one, just to let you know. Mr. Timmons, you join us about Public Works.
I'll begin.
Whenever you're ready. Not
Morning,
your-
council.
Your mic,
I got the light here.
is it on the side?
Seems to be working.
Oh, okay.
IT can deal with that later. Okay, thank you, council. Thank you, Mayor Carter. What you have here is a report regarding the new tandem. If council recalls, we've been on a no commitment wait list for this truck for some time. At this point, it's the exact same truck, same price as the previous. But just considering the current funding in the capital reserve for the roads department, the recommendation is to not purchase a truck at this moment and instead place this as a discussion item for the 2026 budget deliberations. That's essentially the gist of this report. I'm happy to discuss if there are questions.
Questions? Counselor Sisson?
So if you don't take this truck right now, Mike, you go to the bottom of the list. Is that what you're saying here? So how long is it going to be then after the 26 budget deliberations?
Through the chair, that's difficult to tell. We did wait obviously a couple of years for our last one. So I would expect we'd probably be in that year. So we're okay. We're okay with our current equipment. You know, we'll have to put a little bit, you know, the safeties and everything will have to be done. We'll have to put a little bit of maintenance into them. But we do feel comfortable that we can stretch it to that delivery date.
Okay. Councilor McKelvey?
I'm thinking we should buy it. Sorry, but you know, thank you very much for wanting to stretch it out. Sometimes that costs more money.
Mhm.
If we wait and put this out to bid next year, we'll wait 1 to 2 years to get it. It could be a higher rate. This is coming from a reserve. So whether it comes from the reserve this year or next year or the year after really doesn't impact the bottom tax levy. I would like council to consider buying this.
Madam CEO.
And through you to council and to Council McKelvey's comments, that's exactly why the report is before you. We didn't feel as staff, we could make the decision. Councillor McKelvey, you were absolutely right that while staff is doing their best to manage and maintain our equipment in great repair, these things take a long time. And we can almost guarantee it will be more money 2 years down the road. So that is why we came to council and said, here's what we're grappling with.
Do you have a question, Councillor Ingram?
It makes sense to follow through on this. Like you said, it's a reserve purchase, so there's, it's not affecting the budget as such, and we don't want to go to the bottom of the list. That's for sure. It'd take way too long to get back to where we need to be. Sorry, Mike, that's the way it is.
Through the chair, there's no argument on this side.
Other questions? Yeah. Deputy Mayor Shaw.
Not a question, just that I would support that as well. Move that.
So it seems like we need to change the motion.
Yeah, I think it's very pretty straightforward that council directs staff to proceed with the purchase of the tandem truck.
It's available now, is what you said.
Right.
Have it ready for the July 1st Canada Day Parade.
I'm not sure if we can get it that quick, but
Okay.
we do have another essentially sister truck we could put in there if you'd like.
Councillor McKelvey.
I think this just really helps the operations going forward as far as having a better spare than to down, like you must have one down.
Yeah.
That'll be a better spare than what you have, and this is just all win-win.
Go ahead, when you're ready.
I know.
Okay, Councillor
It was fun.
Sisson and Councillor McKelvey, are you okay to change that motion? You're okay with changes to that motion? Moved by Councillor Sisson, seconded by Councillor McKelvey, that council receive report 25-09 roads new tandem as information, and that council directs staff to proceed with purchase of the tandem truck.
All those in favor? As carried. Is that your only items? Thank you. Community services, Ms. McGuigan. Now that you've had to suffer the disappointment of not having the new tandem truck in the parade, could you please tell us what's going to happen in Canada Day?
So a report before you is about Canada Day community event. Just to clarify, there isn't a Canada Day parade.
Oh,
Hard
darn.
complications there unless you're organizing it, Mayor Carter.
darn. Thought we had a new truck.
But hopefully you'll be there for the Santa Claus parade and not have to be in action. So we have various events that are running on Canada Day that include the downtown, the cultural center, the add-on at SG Nesbitt Memorial Arena, and then the fairgrounds at dusk. The add-in for this year is the Super Dogs show at SG Nesbitt Arena, which these shows are 30 minutes in length with a 10 to 15 minute pet and chat afterwards. Shows are at 11, 1, and 3 p.m. and admission is by donation. We have Canoe FM playing, the Antique Car Show by the Halliburton Highlands Time Traveler, and many vendors that will be present downtown during the 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Period, if anybody has any questions.
The free cupcakes are still on, right?
They are at 11:30, Mayor Carter. And then if you want to make your way to the Cultural Center for 12 o'clock, you can get ice cream sponsored by Cortha Dairy.
Okay. Are there any questions about Canada Day? Seeing none, please read the resolution.
Moved by Councillor McKelvey, seconded by Councillor Sisson, that council receive report 25-14 Community Services Department Canada Day Community Event as information.
All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Mr. Gui, we move to building and bylaw.
Morning, Mayor and Council. The first report this morning is an update on the septic maintenance inspection program. Back in 2018, Council had requested an RFP for the implementation of a septic maintenance inspection program. And by 2020, the process had begun, and unfortunately, it was suspended in April of 2024. So since that time, the program has been under review. We've been reassessing things and consulting with industry leaders with regards to possible next steps and the ability to continue with the process and the program in best way forward. As you can see via the map there, that certain zones have been completed. Zone A, Zone B, and Zone C have been completed. And the remaining zones are D1, D2, D3, E1, and E2. They remain to be inspected. My understanding is we have no more water access properties that remain to be inspected. So these are all land properties. We're looking to propose, and again, this is all just kind of high level at this point, but we're proposing to do inspections solely based on Class 2, which are gray water pits, Class 4s, which are leaching beds, and Class 5s, which are holding tanks, which in essence would eliminate Class 1s, which are outhouses, and Class 3s, which are cesspools, which we see very little of, if any at all. We've also been working with our permit provider, Cloud Permit, and trying to establish a form or some form, an inspection list for people to be able to use, for qualified inspectors to be able to use to fill out. That information would come directly to staff, and then staff would follow up with any remedial actions that are necessary. I would like to note that the industry has been very forthcoming with information. They've been very forthcoming with positive reviews of the thought in the direction in which we are going. And obviously, we would only be using qualified individuals who are qualified in the Part 8 of the Ontario Building Code to do these inspections. Happy to take any questions if you got them.
Just a comment on the, I think you said that zone A, B, and C were done.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm not sure that zone C was actually completed. You know, I know I happen to live there, and they certainly didn't get to mine.
They didn't knock on your door to say, hey, we're here.
No, they had, at the early in the session, they not knocked on the door, but they said, hey, we're gonna do you on this date. And I said, can't make that date because I think it was perhaps even a council meeting, but I can, do another date, and then just never heard from them again.
We can,
I think that there was quite, as I talked to neighbors, I think there were quite a few that either didn't get an inspection or didn't get a report after the inspection.
understood.
So-
We can certainly look into that to make sure that
Yeah,
all
I
properties are
just-
captured.
I just say that, it was a incredible disappointment on the performance of the people that were hired. And so, however you come up with a new program, and we've got to take all that into account. Madam CEO.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Gay and I chatted. What we wanted to do today is give council and the community an update on where we are in moving forward with a revised septic inspection program. And as he has alluded to, I mean, we've spent much of this year just understanding how we might manage the information and data related to, we have a big portfolio of septic systems within our township. The intention today is not to give you a fully fleshed out program. It's to give you progress on the work that we're doing. We would be intending to provide much more information as part of the 2026 budget conversations with council. So happy to continue to take input either from council members or I know staff are working very closely with industry experts on this. And we happen to have an industry expert on staff, so that's a bonus for us. So.
Counselor Saini first.
Septics are included.
I'm sorry, clarification on. Oh, class ones. Through the chair, through the building code, class ones are regulated. However, permits aren't required for class ones. So you could build a class one outhouse wherever you wanted to and whenever you wanted to without permissions from us. So for us to go out and regulate how you build them without approving the build essentially is what it is. It doesn't make sense to us, and it would eliminate, you know, a lot of vacant properties as well too, that people have got, you know, outhouses on them. So that would kind of minimize the number of properties that we need to address to. That's the rationale behind it. Other than that, I mean, we're happy to take direction from council, however capacity they wish.
Counselor Ingram.
Through the chair, how many class A inspectors do we have? Apart from the obvious one was Tim, obviously, is a class 8 building code. Do we
So-
have inspectors that can do this job?
So through the chair, we have qualified personnel. Myself, our deputy CBO, our building inspector, and or 2 of our building inspectors are qualified in Part 8. So we do have 4 qualified people in Part 8 on staff at the time.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Counselor Kelby first.
So I realize this is just kind of introducing us to next year's big. I'm really glad it's coming back, but I do think, I think there was issues with some of the other areas, including the Gull Lake issue didn't all get done or followed up or reported, or there's lots of areas that were definitely a disappointment. Having said that, I'm really happy to see this coming back. When you say industry, who are you meaning by that? Like, is this septic pump out people or?
So through the chair, so industry professionals are those who install, service, maintain, and inspect systems. Not solely based on pump outs. So those who are qualified to do so.
Okay. And the other question I have is, are we looking at, there's 2 different ways you can do this. As far as the type of inspection, and sorry, I had it wrote down somewhere, now I can't remember, but there's a class.
You think a level 3, level 4?
Yes, thank you. The level 3 inspection is quite a bit different than a level 4 inspection. But do we have a plan as to what we might want to pursue?
Through the chair. So yes, what we're proposing is a hybrid model between a level 3 and a level 4. The level 3 gives you a basic walk around inspection. A level 4, you're lifting the lids, you're inspecting, you're having a look. The only thing that you wouldn't get out of the hybrid model is the mandatory pump out. So sludge and scum levels are measured in this hybrid model of ours. And then if the scum and sludge levels are a third of the volume of the septic tank, then we, through the building code, can make sure that we can ensure and enforce a pump out at that point. But we would not be, we're not looking to get a pump out done at the time of inspection.
So I think there's experts out there that think that that's really is necessary because there could be cracks in the tank that you wouldn't see in that. So I believe Dysart's doing that process.
So through the chair, if anyone has spent any quality time staring into the abyss of a pumped out septic tank, I can assure you that cracks, unless they are major cracks, they are not visible. It is black as night in there. Okay, unless you're in there physically in the tank itself, examining the walls, and then we're into a whole different realm of hurt at that point. Dysart is doing a very similar inspection process that we're proposing. However, they are using seasonal inspectors that they've hired, but they do not require a pump out unless it reaches a third of the volume of the tank.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Somebody over here. Counselor Singh?
Yeah, it's a follow-up to my previous question because I am concerned about the outhouses that might be there. I know there were some problems with outhouses that weren't really associated with a single building. If a building has another system, that's great, but we still have places where the primary system, because these places were built so long ago and sometimes on water, that I think the outhouses should be examined to some extent, because otherwise that could be a major area of pollutants. And we don't want to leave it up to people's neighbors to determine whether they're going to call a municipality to complain or not. We need to just assure them that any of those that were built a long time ago as a primary system for a house is included, without getting into the vacant properties and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Happy to take that direction.
Counselor Sisson?
My concern is, do your staff have time to do this? There's so many other things that has to get done every day too. So you're just seem to be adding more work to your workload. And is it going to be able to do it ourselves, or is it better to hire someone?
So through the chair, it adds an additional workload, there's no question. We do not have the resources to go out and do the physical side of the inspections. We may be able to find ways to do the administrative side of it, but the actual physical inspections, we do not have the capacity to take that in-house.
So if you were going on a 5-year cycle, with over 7,000 homes, now some are obviously in the villages and they're taken care of by by our waste treatment center, but we're still probably looking at 1,300 residences per year. So it's a significant amount considering we don't have a whole year to do it in. We only have a certain number of months, right? So,
Correct.
but you're talking to people, you're going to come back with a proposal, which I hope will be sometime in September or so. And so that we can, and then we can look at what their final program is, whether 3, 4 hybrids, outhouses, whatever. So all that will be addressed at that time.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, or to you, Mr. Mayor, we intend this to be part of the budget process for 2026.
All right. Please read the.
Moved by Counselor Saini, seconded by Counselor Johannesson, that council receive report 25-016 septic maintenance inspection program update as information.
All those in favor? That's carried. Moving on to roofs. From septic to roof. So
Through you, the mayor. So from top to bottom, apparently. So council has requested some information be brought back with regards to specific roof conditions of certain buildings within our portfolio. So we have, staff have been meeting with 2 engineering firms to try and ascertain the situation and where we're at and how things are unfolding. So the first one would be the Curling Club. So the Curling Club roof is a pitched galvanized steel roof. And apparently, based on engineering review, it is well past its end of life. The gutters and all that stuff have all rotted out, and it's not in a very good condition. So it's expected to have been constructed sometime back in 1980. Is approximately what we anticipated. So during the 2025 budget discussions, council approved the $257,500 to be paid from reserves to offset the cost of the Curling Club roof. In the expectation that the remaining funds might be covered by grant funding. Unfortunately, the grant was not approved, so we have not had any additional funding for the Curling Club roof in that regard. The second building that was of concern was the Cultural Center roof. It's also a pitched standing seam design of very shallow slope. It's estimated to be approximately 18 years old. The expectation was about 2007 when it was constructed. There has been over the years significant ice damming that has occurred at the eaves of the roof, causing lots of damage to fascia, eaves troughs, and various other components as well. With consultation with the engineering firms, their recommendation is that we change the pitch of the roof significantly to help allow for ice, water, and snow to slough off the roof and not accumulate at the eaves and create all the problems we've had in the past few years with regards to that aspect of it. What we're hopeful for today is that council approves the Tandem Engineering as the engineering firm for their proposals to assist with the design and the RFP sort of situation and getting all of that out to the public and taking care of everything as a full inclusive proposal.
I just, what I understand the fact of the, when we're talking about the cultural center, because you're looking to change the structure and so on, but am I missing something? I thought the curling club was really just redoing the roof. Like, why did we need the engineering on the curling club also?
So through the chair, the engineering on the curling club was there for, because of the situation and the building that it's in, is to ensure that the roof structure is capable of supporting any additional work that's being done to it. As well, there's an issue with condensation on the interior side. So there's an insulation aspect of it too that needs to be reviewed by the engineer.
Okay. Councillor Saini?
Yes, thank you. When we're doing these reports, I think it needs to be recognized that we're also getting leakage into the cultural center from the ground. So where the valleys are, water is coming back into the buildings from the ground up, not just from the roof. So in the roof design, if it can be something that takes that water away, particularly that kind of U shape, if you will, that's in the on Bob Cajun Road, as you have the entranceway there, and then where the art is displayed on the other side. Even a full roof design across that would keep that even a picnic area, if you will, protected from rain or something. But that would also then keep the moisture away from going underground and back in through the slab or leaking in through the building envelope itself. So just to keep that in mind, that's a problem there as well. Thanks.
Through the chair, just for clarification, so what you're suggesting then would be a sort of overhang per se, that extends almost to the same distance out towards Bob Cajun Road as the current entry would be.
That would be ideal,
Okay.
but certainly whatever it is, something that makes sure that we don't have water coming back in from the ground into the framework. Thanks.
Councillor McKelvey?
I mean, I'm sure Eric can just tell the engineers that we've had water
Absolutely.
seeping in at the basement or the bottom.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's happened since that log building was put there, so. And then they can decide what kind of a roof structure we need. What kind of timing are we looking at here? Like the curling club is gonna put ice back in what, October? We have a when would this be done? If all the ducks lined up and we agree to hire the consultants today and they start doing their work and we put this out, like, is this even feasible to get done this year?
Through the chair, we anticipate that it would get done this year. So we're being ambitious and hopeful that we can push things ahead.
Assuming there's not a 50% tariff on steel.
Yeah, I had the new maintenance person who sits on the committee for the curling club asked to meet with me, and it's leaking right like inside now too. And they've done so much work inside. I would hate to see all that be undone because of the roof.
Any other questions, Councillor McKelvey?
Has the curling club been told that we didn't get the funding? I am concerned of the cost. Do we have a money tree that nobody's told me about? This could be a huge impact. So, I mean, we applied for funding for 500,000. That's just the curling club alone. I don't think we have enough in the budget for what's being proposed for the cultural center.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor McKelvey has raised a concern, but at this point, I think we need to get the designs done. We need to get tender prices so we then can have fulsome conversation about what we go forward with and how we might finance it.
The other, if I may,
Councilor McKelvey.
perhaps now that the curling club has their lease agreement, they would maybe be in a better position to apply for Trillium funding to help with this. It's just, we need to tell them, keep
Yep.
them in the loop.
Through, Mr. Mayor, we will do so.
Please read the resolution.
Moved by Councillor Saini, seconded by Councillor Johannesson, that council receive report 25-017 as information, and that council direct staff to contract the services of Tandem Engineering to provide all-inclusive engineering services for both the cultural center and curling club roofs at a cost of 18,800 plus HST and 18,700 plus HST respectively.
All those in favor? It is carried. Moving on to your short-term rentals.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so the purpose of this report is just to give council a status update on the comparisons between the various municipalities and how they're rolling out their program and how we're rolling out our program. So I'll skip ahead here. And so the Township of Algonquin Highlands has hired in advance of the rollout of their STR program, one full-time bylaw officer to help offset some of the additional load that has come through with STR applications. Now, the bylaw officer receives, reviews, vets, distributes to the various required planning department, building department for any oversight or any overview that's required, and any follow-up is conducted by this bylaw officer. At this point, they have received approximately 57 applications and have issued 38 licenses, but no inspections have been conducted. Highlands East, the municipality of Highlands East has hired in advance of their STR program rollout a 30 per hour week administrative resource to assist with the implementation of the program. They are in the process of the same similar thing. The STR clerk receives, vets, distributes as required to the various departments for compliance if required. The fire chief is the one who's doing all the inspections in Highlands East as well. So, and they have received 50 STR applications and 25 licenses, approximate numbers. Municipality of Dysart et al. Has hired an additional full-time bylaw officer to offset, in advance of the STR program rollout. Bylaw office is the one who is responsible for receiving, vetting, distributing to the various departments for compliance and follow-up. They have approximately 165 licenses have been issued. They are currently only doing inspections in the area where their septic maintenance inspection program is being conducted. So if they're just using this specific area, those are the only STRs that are being inspected. So all other STRs are not being inspected, and they're being inspected by the seasonal septic maintenance inspector. Next year and the following year, the anticipation is that they will hold their septic program and start inspecting their STRs more diligently. Minden Hills has not hired any additional resources to aid in the implementation and enforcement of the short-term rental program. The STR applications right now are received through our current staff. They are vetted and reviewed and distributed to the various departments, planning, building. We are conducting inspections in all the STRs that are fully compliant at this point. Sorry, pardon me. We are conducting inspections with STRs that all documentation is in place. So we are going out doing, bylaw is going out and doing inspections on all those STRs. We are at 95 applications so far. We have 73 temporary licenses issued, and we have 22 full licenses issued. Now, there's a chart in there just for your viewing pleasure, so you can kind of put it to tabulate the information for you there. We are only in year one of this implementation of this STR program, so we are going through some growing pains. We are trying to understand how the the influx of additional applications are impacting things. We are seeing that it is having an effect on our day-to-day operations of the building bylaw and planning departments. We have done an internal decision has been made that we were relegating STR applications and reviews to Tuesdays and Thursdays on a weekly basis. Otherwise, they are having negative impacts on our statutory requirements through the Building Code Act and the Planning Act. So we are hopeful that council will see to a part-time help to help assist with implementing this program. We currently have outstanding about 100 or so applications that have not been followed up on. So there's potential for more revenue to come through there. We just don't have the means to follow up with these delinquent, we'll call them for lack of a better term, operators. Happy to take some questions.
So you're saying we have 195 total inquiries, if you will?
That is correct.
So the 22, the 73 plus the other 100.
That is correct. 100 of which remain outstanding at this point.
Right. Questions? Councilman Kelvin?
There's a few numbers that seem to be confusing for me. And when you go back to, we had a report in May, but it did end up being pulled from the agenda at the last, but it had different numbers than what we're seeing here, but even on this one, it says we've received 95 short-term rental applications, 73 temporary have been issued, and 22 full licenses have been approved. So what's over on the first page, it talked about a different number. It talks about 57 applications, 38 have been issued. I'm confused what we really have. And I'm wondering what's a temporary license?
Through the chair, just for a point of clarification, so those other ones on the first page are the Township of Algonquin Highland numbers.
Oh, sorry,
So,
okay.
okay, so each individual one, so Highlands East numbers, Dysart's numbers, and then our numbers at the end.
Okay,
Okay, so those are our numbers at the end. Okay. A temporary license is when you apply through Granicus for an STR application, you're automatically given a temporary license to continue operating. And then at that point, we're working with the applicants to fulfill all the documentation requirements. And then once all the documentation is in place, we then prepare and to go out and do an inspection. We book an inspection with the operators. Our bylaw department goes out, they have a checklist that they follow. And if they meet all the checks, then they're issued their full license at that point. If they don't meet all the checks, there's outstanding items, we return to verify the items, or they supply us with documentation. Simple things like, for example, the sign not being at the end of the road. They can give us a picture with the 911 number in the background, and we don't have to return to do another inspection. But life safety issues, things like fire extinguishers, egress issues, smoke CO detectors not in place, we return to do secondary inspections to ensure compliance with all the required codes.
Councilor McKelvey?
okay, so we haven't really issued the 73 temporary licenses, and they just automatically get that going through Granicus.
That's correct.
So when we first talked about this whole short-term rental thing, there was concern about workload, and you weren't here, Eric, so.
Understood.
We were talking about the need to ensure that they sign an affidavit so that the onus is on the applicant, and we won't have to go out and do an inspection on each and every property. We had agreed that we would maybe spot check it when we had time, or we might be out there for some other reason. So I'm trying to figure out why we all of a sudden went to this. Each and every one has to be inspected when they're signing an affidavit. when we weren't planning to do these inspections. It's a huge amount of work, I'm sure. The other thing I need to know about is the docks, because I'm sure the license of occupation for docks is creating a huge amount of work as well for these short-term rentals.
I think as I recall, the idea was that we would make folks sign the affidavit so that we did not have to do the inspection before they could get a license. But we did not say that we would never do the inspection. But, well, I think probably more than spot checks, but
Well, just on that, then if I may, so Algonquin Highlands has 38-ish license issued, but 0 site inspections. So they're not doing them.
That's correct.
yeah, no, I understand that for the agreement was that, because, if we had hundreds of applicants, there was no way in the world that our fire chief could do hundreds of them before we could grant the licenses. So we were going to get people to sign an affidavit, and then we would catch up at some point. I'm pretty shocked that other people are not doing any, because that was discussed at county council at length on that. We grant the temporary license because, obviously we didn't want to have a total disruption. We wanted to get the program in place, but not have a total disruption of the situation. So I don't understand why people aren't doing any inspections. It would seem to me to be something that needs to be done, whether it be obviously septic, but the fire one, particularly with the ingress and egress and how many people were going to be in the building. I recall one of the original ones where they had a basement. They had like 8 people in the basement and no way out, or one way out. And so these were the things that we would hope to, we would hope we would see in an inspection. So I guess 2 questions. Do we do the inspections, which I think we need to, and then B, how do we get you the support you need to do it? Councillor Sain?
Yes, thank you to the mayor. I think it's really important that we support our people who are doing the short-term rentals for our industry here. We know that provides our tourism and supports our businesses. So it's really important to make this as easy as possible. But at the same time, we're trying to balance the risk that the municipality is at in terms of the insurance risk if we do not do the inspection. And I think with the problem we have with insurance companies, that if there's an incident in a short-term rental, now they're licensed under a municipality, we're also liable and will be included in any kind of suits, such as too many people sleeping in the basement. So I think there's other municipalities that are taking greater risks than what we have taken in this case. I think that has probably put us in a bad light with the frustration of people getting their short-term rental licenses because of these things that have to be in place. A lot of residents and people who manage the short-term rentals, once again, their own places, don't understand the codes and necessity, the history that's gone into why those things take place. It is a good reason for anybody looking at using their place as a short-term rental to go through one of our rental companies that we have in the area that have been very successful and know those rules over the period of time. So I just want to say that there is a balancing act here. I appreciate the fact that we are doing that and we're not putting the burden of potential legal liability, which increases our insurance, on all the residents. But we do need to support short-term rentals. So there is a balancing act that I see that we're doing here. That's what I wanted to make sure we understood, that full perspective. Thank you.
Councillor Ringo?
Through the chair, I'm having some concerns with our staff going out and identifying issues with the property, it's forcing staff to go back and ensure that that has been fixed. Well, what if it was fixed on a Friday or wasn't fixed? And you're going away and something happens. I mean, really, once you start identifying issues with things, you are obligated. You've identified it, so it has to be fixed. You follow? That's my concern. I don't know how we get around that. I really don't.
The original idea of the affidavits or whatever was to put the onus on the owner to say that my house meets all of the electrical code and all those types of things. So, you know, that was really our coverage on the insurance. But, you know, it was still our intention, certainly when we discussed this at you know, right from the beginning at the county, was that, you know, we were going to have safe product out there and we weren't going to allow crazy numbers of people in a unit. It was limited and defined how many people could be in a unit, so on. You know, I'm at a loss as to how people are just not doing any inspections. That's just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Because it wouldn't take long to do, even if you're just doing a random number, that you would find issues which would make you want to do more.
I would go back to what Councillor Ingham just said then. I mean, the fact that if we just don't do inspections, which would save staff time, we're not responsible. The homeowners by signing the affidavit. I actually think Algonquin Highlands is on the mark.
Perhaps. I'm not gonna, I don't know. Councillor McKelvey.
I just, going back to, we had several discussions at council here that we would just do spot checks. We were not going to be going and doing inspections on every one of these. And so we've created a beast here that we can't possibly handle. And that was definitely discussed and was going to be avoided by the whole affidavit. The liability is then on the person signing. They have to supply us with a septic approval, I believe. They have to supply us with a site plan or some kind of a plan that shows how many sleeping accommodations they have. So the affidavit is what's going to stop the municipality from being liable when they submit an application that says this is a facility that sleeps 4. Our septic is built for that standard and they put 8 people in it. There will be spot checks and there will be complaints, and then that will trigger inspections. I don't think we ever envisioned that each and every license in the Township of Minden Hills was going to be inspected. $500 license fee doesn't even touch it, if that's what we were thinking. The other thing, going back to this docks, we're creating a lot of work by making people that have a dock on a short-term rental have to get a license of occupation. So those 2 things right there limits a lot of staff time.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. This is quite an interesting body of work for staff. This is a huge body of work, very new to the township. In a previous world, I had a colleague who was 7 years into a short-term rental program and still making tweaks and changes and that sort of thing. So I don't think it's unheard of that we'd be 1 year in and still having to review things. I think staff can very much take away council's comments around affidavit. I know we have a separate report on this agenda around license of occupation that we'll get to later. It would be staff's recommendation, though, Minden Hills has not put any dedicated resources to this. It is an ever-evolving program, and so we don't want to tie ourselves and council into permanent resource at this point, but we could benefit from a part-time dedicated administrative resource to help our groups stay in their businesses in planning and building, meeting their statutory timelines, and also moving this program along. So happy to take away the comments from council and review with our staff in terms of inspections and affidavits. But I do think our recommendation for a one-year contract still sits on the table. Thank you.
Counselor Saney.
Thank you. Yeah, two items. One is I'm still concerned about the joint and several liability, and I don't know if there's a legal case law yet that shows what municipalities are responsible for or not. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration if we do or don't do those inspections. So maybe that's something that we could, in the assessment of this, take to the lawyer and ask the lawyer about that. And
Sorry, we did get a legal opinion on that with
yeah,
at
and
the county.
at the county level.
Yeah,
And
and that the affidavit was sufficient.
okay, so that
That-
makes a big difference
Yeah.
if that's sufficient. And in terms of the part-time person to take this on instead of additional, I support this, but I understand that the fees that will be collected is what's going to pay for this position. So it's not really increasing our budget in any way, but adding a new service and adding the staff and the income from that. Is that correct? Thank you.
Counselor McKelvey.
So on the fees, when you go to the last page of this report, the revenue to date is $61,091.08. We charge a flat $500, so I'm questioning how we could have gotten to $91.08. Like, there's something not right with these numbers. I'm wondering if it includes the mat tax, which is not part of our revenue. I don't know where $61,091.08 comes from a $500 fee. And maybe that's not a question for you.
Through the chair, I'm not the numbers guy here, but we do, in that, there's a $500 minimum fee for the license as well. There's reinspection fees that have been added to that number. So when we return our second time to a property to re-inspect, there's a $150 fee.
Okay,
That's
that
been
still
put in.
won't get down to cents.
Understood.
So I'm concerned that these numbers are not reflective of what the license fee revenue should be. It's $500. I didn't realize we were dinging them to go on top of that again. So we do one inspection, we find a problem, and then we charge them again to go back at it.
That is correct. The first inspection is on the house essentially, and any future problems are $150 reinspection fees.
So through the chair, I could do a more further analysis of what's in the jail, but those were revenue items that went through cash receipts up until the report.
But I'm concerned that these have got money in them for something that can't be a license. I'm suspicious that it might be the mat tax. Have we remitted to the county on our mat tax?
So through the chair, the county is receiving mat tax. We don't receive it.
We receive it, we remit it.
We haven't received any to this point.
That's the problem.
That's a follow-up with the county.
The county doesn't get paid the mat tax. The township gets paid the mat tax. We keep 2%. We remit 2% quarterly to the county. That was the arrangements. There is no way that the revenue for short-term rental program is going to end with $1,091.08. So I kind of need to know, like, if we have 95 licenses issued, that's 47.5. the math is not working for me. And without the math being correct, I don't know how we can consider adding more.
Well, let's not assume that the math isn't correct. Let's try to find an explanation for what the issue is. The tax, I believe, was only going to be collected quarterly. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure what.
So through the chair, I have not seen any documentation yet
All right.
for Matt Taft.
So there's a follow-up with the county, and let's get that straightened out and figure out where we go from there.
I was just gonna say that it's definitely through the municipalities because Dysart, for example, decided on a different amount
Right.
for their mat tax. So I think it would have to come to the municipality before the county, just,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it comes down to when the filings were and all that type of thing. So we can get that information. But the question on the table at this is for the idea of the approval of a 1-year part-time position for doing the administration, which, any other comments on that? Please read the,
Moved by Counselor Saini, seconded by Counselor Johansson, that council receive report 25-018 as information, and that council approve a 1-year part-time position contract dedicated to assist with the implementation of the STR program.
all those in favor? It's carried. We are at 10:36, and that's why I figured, so let's reconvene at 10:46. Well, if I said 10:45, you'd be complaining about Okay, we are going to now move into closed session for those who are watching via YouTube. We will move into closed session. Not really certain how long closed session will take, but we will reconvene as soon as that is over. So please read the resolution on moving to closed session.
Moved by Councillor Saini, seconded by Councillor Johannesson. Be it resolved that council proceed into closed session at 10:47 a.m. for the purpose of discussing the following. One item pursuant to section 2392D of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended regarding labor relations or employee negotiations, wages and benefits. One item pursuant to section 2392F of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended regarding advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, legal advice.
All those in favor? That is carried. Let's move into closed session. All right, we're back. Madam Deputy Clerk, please proceed with the resolution to resume open session.
Moved by Councillor Sisson, seconded by Councillor McKelvey. Be it resolved that closed session adjourned 12:24 p.m. and open session resumed.
All those in favor? That is carried. I don't think we need the report from closed session. In terms of, it was not specific direction, so I think you're fine. Please begin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good afternoon, Council. The first report is Report 25-46. This is for a severance agreement to satisfy condition of consent application H-051-24 for 1473 Bat Lake Road. And this would serve to incorporate all of the mitigation measures of the environmental impact study that was prepared in order to ensure responsible development of the lands.
Go ahead.
So I don't know, at the point I'm making where else we can.
Did you want me to? Sure. 47. Okay, so report 2547, also for a severance agreement, which is for vacant lands on Highway 21, and that's for severances H-046-H H-047, both 2024. Again, this would be to incorporate the mitigation measures for an environmental impact study. There were additional requirements included for delineation of the driveway, and those would need to be carried out by the property owner prior to any further work occurring on the lands.
Any questions? Let you read the resolution, whichever one it is. I know.
Moved by Councillor Ingram, seconded by Councillor Sani, that council receive report 25-47, planning as information, and further that bylaws 2568 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a severance agreement with Giovanni Calvieri for application PLSEVA 2025042 be referred to the bylaw section of the agenda.
All those in favor? That is carried.
Through Mr. Mayor, so going back to 25-46, as I said, for application H-051-24 for 1473 Bat Lake Road.
Any questions? Let's read the resolution.
Moved by Councillor Sani, seconded by Councillor Ingram, that council receive report 25-46, planning as information, and further that bylaw 25-67 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a severance agreement with Alan Cook and Diane Halfpenny Cook for application PLSEVA 2025032 be referred to the bylaw section of the agenda.
All those in favor? That is carried.
Through Mr. Mayor, report 25-48. This is a report for proposed severance at 1129 Horseshoe Lake Road. The landowners want to sever off essentially the portion of the property that has the existing house on it and leave a larger rural lot for other possible development. The severance is supportable and staff are recommending it to be endorsed to county for approval, subject to the conditions outlined in the report.
Is this posted? How does that get posted to the neighbors? Is it at our level or is it at the county level?
Through Mr. Mayor, that's at the county level once they submit a formal application.
Thank you. Any questions, Councilor McKelvey?
Couple things. I just wonder, when people come in and want to have a pre-consultation, they're thinking of doing this or that. Do we explain to them that if you made, in this particular case, this lot a little bigger, you would avoid the need for rezoning because it would just remain in the rural, like they could meet the rural frontage and area requirements?
Through Mr. Mayor, so we do tend to have those kinds of conversations. I am aware in this case that they were approached about changing the proposed lot area, and they really wanted to keep it at this minimum size.
Okay, that's fine. The other thing is the adjacent pit. I just wondered, is it just not designated or?
Through Mr. Mayor, I don't believe it's designated. I'd have to go back and look. I do know that it is licensed. And if it was a long-standing one, then they're not necessarily captured through our official plan and zoning, because the intent is that once that land use ceases, it would go to usually the rural designation.
Let's read the resolution.
Moved by Counselor Ingram, seconded by Counselor Saney, that council receive report 25-48 planning as information. That council recommends approval of the application to create a new lot for lands identified as 1129 Horseshoe Lake Road, Coltman, to the County of Haliburton Land Division, subject to the conditions outlined in the pre-consultation report.
All those in favor? That is carried. Let's continue.
Through Mr. Mayor, so report 25-50 is related to potential delegating authority. So planning staff are always looking for ways to streamline workflows and improve the development approval process. And where there are certain exercises, mostly administrative, there's an opportunity to accelerate timelines if those tasks could be delegated to staff. So I have provided two initial options. The first is for severance agreements. So those are relatively standardized agreements. Usually any of the site-specific clauses that we're receiving have been provided to us through either technical studies or council. So in delegating that task to staff, that would save approximately 2 months in terms of processing time, both for the severance agreement itself, but for the related consent application. And as well as associated staff time, which would approximate at about 3 hours per file, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's essentially half a day per file when you start to add it up. So the other is related to the shore road allowance applications, and essentially just that first component where we bring forward that report where we confirm that it conforms to the official plan. And as council knows, 99% of them certainly do. And so this has become quite a repetitive task. And in this case, it would save quite a bit of time. Right now, it would save about 3 to 4 months worth of processing time for the initial phase of that application, as well as staff time, which is a little bit less than severance agreements, about 1 to 2 hours per application, which again doesn't sound like very much, but if you add that up over all of the applications we get over the course of a year, that adds up to about 1 week worth of work that we could be spending on other functions. So yeah, so those are just some options that we're putting forward in order to potentially streamline, but certainly open to any questions.
Questions? Councilor McKelvey?
Shoreline road allowance ones, I'm 100%, because it is just very repetitive. I'm trying to figure out your timeline for severance agreements. By us delegating, then there's what you're no longer having to do is a report at council and a bylaw. You still have to do the agreement and everything anyways, right? So I'm just trying to figure out that timeline that you would save.
Through Mr. Mayor, so generally speaking, right now, we do get the severance agreement applications at the same time as a rezoning application. Obviously the two, or I shouldn't say obviously, usually the two go hand in hand. We wait to bring forward the severance agreement application in case there's any issues that arise during the public meeting process for the zoning bylaw amendment. And so then by the time we're bringing it forward, we're looking at around a month, sometimes a little longer, depending on what that is, in order to bring a report forward to council. And then there's also the kind of maintaining awareness of and monitoring of that application, because it's going through a lengthy consent process. So it would allow us to prepare the agreement very soon after the zoning bylaw amendment would have been passed. And then rather than waiting for it to come to council, we can have that issued soon after.
And sorry, and just to tag on to our manager of plannings, I mean, Amanda's speaking to the planning side of things, but then when you get into the process to get a a report submitted and get it through all the approvals processes. I would suggest that this week, people are working on their July reports. So that's how far in advance we're working on reports. It's about a month in advance just to get it through the approval processes. So.
Councilor McKelvin?
Like I said, I'm fine on the shoreline. I still feel the severance agreements. While I do not want to slow down anything, I just think that it's still information that should be out in the public. I think somebody should be able to look at the agenda and know what the conditions are for development. I think it has to go on the agenda to do that. That's just my thoughts.
Councilor Singh?
Yeah, to be as informative on the agenda, but not to slow down the process. So even if it's just, even with the shore road allowances, just to say this has happened, this person's bought their shore road, doesn't hurt just to have it in the information, the same as the other, but not necessarily, it'd be more like for your report, these were approved and carried on, that we're not voting on it at this point. Is that what I'm hearing is the proposal, right? You could continue on with this recommendation, but there would be a report in terms of what was actually done that week, so people would know if that's the issue.
Through Mr. Mayor, so I suppose what we could do is incorporate that kind of information in the quarterly updates that we provide. That could be additional information that we're including if council wanted to go with delegating approval of the severance agreements to staff.
I'm sensitive on severance agreements. You know, I think that, you know, the nature of our area, we want to make sure that it develops in a certain way. So the notion that the severance agreements be very public and everybody knows, you know, that, hey, these guys only had 50 meters as opposed to 60 meters and that type of thing. I know you wouldn't approve something that didn't have the exact minimum, but I don't know, I don't feel like I could make that decision today. I'm okay on the shoreline road allowance, but the other one, I have to absorb it a bit more.
Yeah, so perhaps through Mr. Mayor to council, if council wishes to approve the one delegated authority, you know, staff and I can take back. I mean, again, this is a new concept for us to bring forward areas where it's intended to be purely administrative functions. So perhaps if council will approve the one delegated authority, we can take the other one back and either flesh out in more detail or look at ways. I think what we're hearing from council is there is a want for a public notice process. Thanks.
Does that sound reasonable? Most? Okay. Please amend the resolution and. Yeah.
I'll just remove the second and
Right.
third line. Councillor Saini and Councillor Johannesson, that's okay. Moved by Councillor Saini, seconded by Councillor Johannesson, that council receives report 25-50 planning delegated authority as information, and that council delegates to the department head of planning the authority to approve the first phase of shore road allowance purchases, being to confirm official plan conformity.
All those in favor? That is carried. Yeah, you got that. Are you next also on the short-term rental?
Yes.
Okay.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so this is report 25-51. This is information that council had requested to come back with respect to more so the license of occupation process following a staff report as well as a delegation on May 29th. So I suppose in summation, essentially from the information we were able to gather from insurance as well as legal, it is possible to forego the license of occupation process, but would not be considered best practice. Where we have an opportunity to ensure that an individual who's benefiting from or utilizing public lands be responsible should harm occur, then the idea being that we take that opportunity. It is also possible to indemnify through a rental agreement with a property management company. But it does create somewhat of an awkward arrangement and would require the township to either enter into the agreement as well in order to have status, or otherwise we're sort of giving up our control or our status in that arrangement and placing that responsibility with a third party. And as outlined in the report, there could be potential unintended impacts from that. So happy to try and answer any questions for anything that might be arising from the report, but essentially legal advice would be to continue with the license of occupation process.
Questions? Go ahead, Councilor McKelvey.
That's what, so we're being asked here at this to decide whether we're going to make people that have a dog get a license of occupation if they're running a short-term rental.
And they don't know shoreline.
And yeah, that's what we're being.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the recommendation of the report is just to receive it as information. Staff are not recommending any changes to the current process, so it would be up to council if you want to see changes to the way things are done. But as it is right now, a dock is a structure, and when located within municipally owned shoreline road allowance, we do seek the license of occupation.
Yep.
Amanda, so in other municipalities within the county, you actually can't have a short-term rental license if you don't own the shore road allowance. Is that correct? I believe that's in Algonquin Highlands. It's like that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So everyone has a little bit of a different way of handling it. So Algonquin Highlands does require purchase of the shore road allowance.
Yeah.
I believe that's only for buildings. Off the top of my, that are on the shoreline. Yes, specifically on the shoreline. I don't believe they extended that to structures. Highlands East requires purchase of the shore road allowance no matter what, unless it's considered to be a temporary dock. So even if it's still anchored, but it's removed seasonally, then you do have the option of a license of occupation, but otherwise everyone has to go through purchase. And then Dysart is purchase if it's the house, and they have the option of doing a license of occupation in the interim.
Councilor McKelvey.
So again, my recollection was that we had talked about this and that we were very adamant that if the building that has the house, the cottage,
Yeah.
the bedrooms.
I just to correct, okay, we did have that discussion. I agree 100%. But then the issue of the liability came up. And so that is what has changed this. It's not that we don't want to allow things, but we don't want to accept for the municipality liability for something that happens.
What's the difference between the property sitting here with the dock and the property sitting here with the dock that gets a building rate? I just can't get my head around the difference.
I don't know what two properties you're talking.
I'm just throwing out the example. What's the difference between a person on the Cashag Wigmog having a dock in front of their property
Mhm.
on the municipal shoreline road allowance. And the property right next door to them being on the municipal shoreline road allowance, but they have to get a license of occupation because the dock,
Well, because of the commercial nature of it.
but we have commercial operators with docks that we don't do that are really commercial. So that's where I don't know. I think short-term rentals are really important to our community, and I think we're just almost cutting them out by our regulations.
You know, initially we had thought that if anybody wanted to do short-term rentals, that they should own their shoreline road allowance. That was the original idea, and that takes all of this off the table. But we've got people who have not bought the shoreline road allowance and want to operate something commercially on land that we own. And we have been told by the insurance company that it's, you know, we have a liability, and I'm not willing to give to the people of Minden that liability. You know, why would the people of Minden accept that liability for somebody who is going to make money off of a piece of property that we own? Go ahead.
Can we see this document you're talking about? Because I've never seen this, so.
Well, I'm just tagging what we were just told in this report. That best practice was that.
Best practice is different than what you just indicated.
So maybe I can help, Mr. Mayor. If council wants written legal advice, we can get that. We had conversation with both the insurance company and with legal counsel. So, and that is just what's being presented to council for information today.
So we would receive this as information and you would. Councilman McKelvey?
So I always understood when we were dealing with this, we had insurance companies telling us that you can't get added as an additional insured party to property that you already own. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I have an insurance policy for my house or my cottage or whatever, and I wanted to add the township as an additional insured party for the shoreline road allowance, I can't even do that because I don't own it.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so there's technically two properties in question here, and this comes into play too when we do just our regular policy 45 license of occupation. So someone has a insurance policy on the land that they own, they cannot add the township to that. They do have to take out a second policy. People have been doing that through our license of occupation program under policy 45. And because the township owns those lands, they're able to be added as an additional insured. We can't be on someone's private property, but on our property that we own, we can. But we have the person interested in using that land be the person who takes out the policy.
Councilor Saney?
And for clarification, if people don't own the shore road allowance, why is that a private dock? It could be used by any public person. So that means that short-term rentals then are not responsible or cannot offer a dock to the short-term rental folks because that's a public dock. Unless they own the shore road allowance. Not to confuse things. But
Well, and particularly since, you know, if it's in a long string of cottages, there's no public access to it without going over private property. So if it's going to. Huh? Off the lake you can, you're correct. So, okay, fine, let's get a legal opinion and settle this. I think, you know, we've got advice, but if we want to get, you know, finalize this, let's get the legal opinion and go from there. Councilor McKelvey?
I think we've already had a legal opinion that's saying it's best practice. Is that what? You were talking about you seem to be talking about an insurance thing that sounded like it was something you'd looked at. That's what I was trying to say. Well, I've never.
Just what I've been told and from reports.
So as far as legal opinion, I thought the county already did all that when they were looking at this whole short-term rental.
The idea, no, I mean, this is, we had this short-term rental policy that we all put together, and then all the exceptions start coming up, and the one that came up was not owning the shoreline road allowance, and part of your building is on it, and then, so all these things have come up. So no, it wasn't anticipated at the county level to the extent that it exists today.
I just recall I thought when it came from the county, there was definitely talk that you had to buy your shoreline road
Yes.
allowance if the building that you're renting out was on it. Then that's when we decided, some townships decided, but we'll give them a license of occupation in advance of them doing that. But it was still only to do with the building.
Then it came up about any other accessory buildings, docks or whatever. So let's get the legal opinion and we go from there. Yep. So just receive this as information. Yep.
Moved by Councillor McKelvey, seconded by Councillor Sisson, that council receive report 25-51 planning as information.
All those in favor? Is carried. Thank you. We'll speak to the next one. Sure. Go ahead.
Council, I'll just speak briefly to the next report, just in knowing that some council members have time crunches. The report is really presenting the 2025 salary schedule that has been reviewed with council. And this really, we're looking for approval and passing of the bylaw for auditing purposes.
What do you mean? So, sir. Councilman Kelly?
I don't believe the bylaw is actually on the agenda.
No, the bylaw would come at the next,
Okay, that's
next
fine.
meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, do we need to receive that or do we need to make the approval? Read.
Moved by Councillor McKelvey, seconded by Councillor Sisson, that council approves the 2025 non-union salary schedule as amended effective March 13th, 2025, and that council approves the incremental percentage increases for 2026 and 2027.
All those in favor? That is carried. Yeah.
Council, I believe the next report is mine. We've had numerous discussions throughout my time here about the need to streamline and modernize Minden Hills development application process. We've worked very hard internally with our staff and we've made some strides, but we would very much benefit from a third-party comprehensive review. I've done this in 2 other municipalities, and it was of great benefit to have somebody, third-party, fresh eyes, understands best business practices to look at an end-to-end review. It would involve input from all of our stakeholders. What it gives us in the end is tangible actions based on industry best practices and better yet, a roadmap for implementing change. What I've given you in the report is potential funding source from the admin reserve. I've given you what is based on sort of an order of magnitude thought on potential cost, but I would be bringing back to council the actual cost as part of the tender award. What the comprehensive review will do for us is it will look at everything, every touch point throughout our development application process. And as I say, I've found this to be a very valuable process to go through, very valuable document, and it's allowed me to improve things in other municipalities. And I'm happy to answer questions.
I would think that the one thing is what Councillor Ingram spoke about a while back is that we also look at the situation of the kind of the do nothing or reduce services. Like what would be the impact on if we had less resources going towards it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is why having fresh eyes come in, look at the processes from end to end, get input from stakeholders. They're also going to be bringing us what other municipalities are doing. And absolutely, as part of that report that would come back to council, there may be options for council to consider in terms of service or service levels.
Councillor McCallum?
I guess we won't know until we put it out for proposals, but I have concerns with the amount of money because, you know, we approved another position here earlier today. We still don't know what our last year's surplus was. We have a debenture payment, I'm assuming that we need to discuss soon for this Bob Cage and Scotch Line Road. I mean, we were waiting for the surplus, but we still don't know what that is. We just found out we don't have the curling club grant for the roof.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, for me, I guess this is a one-time cost that fits within the administrative reserve. We don't have to do this, but I will put on the table that we will not make significant strides trying to run business as usual and review our development application process from end to end. We just do not have the internal horsepower to do that. I think I've been asked repeatedly since I've been here, fix it. And I have a way we can potentially fix it, but I need help and support.
Okay. Let's read the resolution.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Shell, seconded by Councillor McKelvey, that council receive report 25-24 development application process review for information and that council approves allocation from the administrative reserve to fund the project.
All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, 1472 is me, a verbal update on strong mayor powers. So first of all, just a little history. This was created by the provincial government to speed up the adoption of provincial priorities in housing. Started in large cities and it's been expanded twice. Initially, only the very large cities had this. Then a couple of years ago, they expanded to, I think, another 35 cities. And in the latest expansion, they've added 160, I think it was 168 cities, which included Minden Hills. So Minden Hills, like most other places, did not request this or have any discussion with the province before these changes were made. We found out about it on the morning that it was announced. However, now, the law has changed, and in that it changes the mayor's responsibility under the law. There are many who don't believe that this was the way to go or it's proper, and that's a discussion to be had with the provincial government. It's like changes to the Planning Act or any other provincial law. We must follow what the new law is. And if we need to change that law, then it needs to be changed at the provincial level. So council asked and I agreed to bring forward in my plans of how I saw the use of these powers. So I've spoken to a number of people in other municipalities and governments, some who have these powers and some that have just received the powers. And try to understand everything that's involved in this. It's really clear that many people do not understand the roles and responsibilities and believe that this is a simple matter. It is not. It needs to be noted that these new responsibilities are delegated to the position of the mayor and not to any individual. The decision to exercise or delegate this responsibility can be made by one mayor and changed by the next mayor. This is not something that one mayor can decide and it stays that way forever. The law remains as it is written. So I was elected to represent the people of Minden Hills, and I've always tried to do what is best for them, and that is the guiding principle I'm going to continue to use going forward. I'll provide more detailed explanations on this in the near future, but just at the beginning, one of the areas is about creating committees. And it's my intention to delegate the power to create and disband committees and to name the chair and the vice chairs to council. I will delegate to the CAO all employment matters, with the exception of the certain statutory limitations regarding staff. I will also plan to delegate the determination of the organizational structure of the municipality to the CAO. Regarding the budget, the mayor must prepare and present the budget by February 1st. Therefore, I will ask the CAO and staff to prepare a budget. Once completed, the budget will get public input. It will then be discussed by council, whether or not those two things happen at the same time, and be finalized by February 1st. My goal would be to have that finalized early in January. The details of exactly how we're going to do that and the timeline will have to be worked out shortly and published for everybody. I don't see any other issues that need to be addressed this time, because I can't foresee a situation where a veto or similar would be used, as I expect council is going to continue to act as before and work together on moving Minden Hills forward. I'm not going to try to speculate on hypotheticals, but I'm always going to keep in mind that the best interests of the people of Minden Hills are going to be, as I said, the guiding principles. So that sort of in a nutshell is how I plan to proceed. You'll see that it's very similar to what Dysart has put forward earlier this week, and what many other councils are doing. So that's basically the situation. I'll allow a round of questions if that's requested. Go ahead, Councillor Saini.
Yeah, I want to first say thanks for your thoughtfulness on this and your report on this and your clarity and how it applies here. I still am against the act provincially. But I also understand why the province has put this in place, because of the stories and some of the things that we've been hearing from a lot of the municipalities around the province. It's almost like a situational ethics. Sometimes I think, great, the strong mayor's powers are there so they could get the housing accomplished. And other times I'm thinking, it's really unfair when you look at some of the headlines and what is going on and how much some mayors are costing their communities with their changing of staff is astronomical, that the public never even sees those amounts. It really depends on the person in that position, in that situation. and a depth of understanding of how it's used. So I have had the opportunity to talk with lots of municipalities and see why this is a potentially good thing in some situations. And I have to even say in this council, we had a motion on the accelerator fund, which we had what we had been lobbying about at the provincial and federal level for a very long time to get money to come forward to encourage development in our area, encourage some infrastructure here. We as a council voted that down, and the accelerator fund. And when we voted that down, it was a proposal that came from our treasurer to help fund some of the infrastructure. We didn't know exactly where the pipes were going to go. We didn't have that plan, but we knew where our business section was. But we voted against that. That's a case in point where if there was a strong mayor's act and we wanted to get more housing here and encourage development, I'm not saying you would, but that's a situation that some strong mayors might use to accelerate, to use that funding that we lobbied for so long through the grant system. So that's just one example. I find it, if you have a continuum of what's democracy and what isn't, on one hand, you have all of us in their community gathering out in the parking lot and raising our hand to every issue. That's democracy, right? On the other hand, that's with our complications of bureaucracy changing, the implications of policies and bylaws, we can't do that anymore. So it's our responsibility here to understand all of those bylaws, all of those processes, which are not always front and center within the public view. It is a long learning process, as anybody new on council will learn how much regulations and changing regulations that we have. And that's where we're caught between that being democratic and being authoritarian. So there's a line. This is leading more towards that authoritarian line, in my opinion, because now we're limiting it to one person with, 2/3 support or whatever from the rest of the municipal council. But it's a line I think we really, really need to be cautious of in this day and age, and to respect each other around the table, that we're making the best decisions. It is partly why I wanted to have that kind of session with the integrity commissioner, so we could talk about these sorts of issues. So once again, I stand, against it in principle and how it's leaning and pushing our governance. On the other hand, I can see some situations where it has been extremely important to help with the municipalities in getting functional councils together. So I just need to say that because of my position on this, but also really respect the thought that you went into this and the thought about how you may or may not use this. It's not an easy kind of decision to make, and it's new for everybody. So thank you for that.
Councillor McKelvey?
So I need clarification from Councillor Saini about the grant that council turned down. I'm assuming this was a previous council? What are you talking about then, please, if you mind?
Sure, it was the Accelerator Fund grant. I'd have to go back. It was presented by our treasurer.
I've never heard of.
Do you remember
so-
that grant that we didn't support? The
I
treasurer?
don't believe it was I've never heard of an accelerator grant, so I don't think it was.
Accelerator Fund.
I don't think it was at this council.
I could go back and, yeah, it was this council. I'd have to go back and look at it. But there was questions about where it would go.
Okay, you're talking about the water grant from the last meeting?
It was
We
through the
didn't turn it
Accelerator Fund grant.
down. That wasn't.
But anyway, this is not a conversation about that particular grant. I'm just saying that there are some examples that I think are important that would lead to the Strong Mayors Act to support, for example, housing projects in this case. So,
Okay,
but we can come back to that. I wasn't prepared to go back in my minutes to find it, but I can do that for you if you'd like. Thank you.
Councillor McKelvey?
I'm just concerned that you made a statement that I'm just trying to get clarified. I don't believe this council turned down a grant. So I'm asking now that you've put this on the floor, that you clarify what grant, I'm assuming it was a previous council because we didn't turn down a grant.
Through the chair. If you want to put this on the next agenda, I'll come back with that. If we want to make this a discussion about that item, then I think that's a discussion about that item, not about what's before us with the Strong Mayors
The
Act.
one that brought it up. So I'm just-
And so therefore, there's, as an example, and I can go back through and find that in our minutes if you'd like, but I wasn't prepared to do that today. Thank you.
Okay. Let us move on. Bylaws?
Moved by Counselor Sisson, seconded by Counselor McKelvey. Be it resolved that the following bylaws be received and read a first time, considered read a second time and third time, and finally passed with corporate seal affixed. Bylaw 25-67, PLSEVA 2025032, Halfpenny Cook. Bylaw 25-68, PLSEVA 2025042, Calvieri.
All those in favor? That is carried. Confirming bylaw?
Moved by Counselor Saney, seconded by Counselor Ingram, that bylaw 25-69, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council held during its meeting of June 26, 2025, be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed.
All those in favor? It's carried. Adjournment?
Moved by Counselor Johannesson, seconded by Counselor Saney. Be it resolved that the June 26, 2025 regular council meeting is hereby adjourned at 1:10 p.m.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everybody. Our next regular council meeting is scheduled for Thursday, July 31st at 9 a.m. We get a meeting off in the middle of July. There was report on today's agenda that included many of the events scheduled for Canada Day celebrations on Tuesday, July 1st. I was extremely disappointed that we won't have a parade, but the full day of activities for the family and everybody, concluding with fireworks at the Minden Fairgrounds. This is the best Canada Day celebration in all the nation, so please be sure to show up. Thank you.